On this episode of One-on-One, well, we're going to have a little fun today. We have Coach Tim Rebowe, the head coach of the Nicholls State University Colonels, and quite an interesting fella. Worked his way up to the coaching profession. He'll be our guest tonight on One-on-One. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer.
No law degree, no amount of experience can supersede the compassion that our firm gives to its clients.
One of the secrets is to always know your case better than your opposing counsel knows his or her case.
We try to carry those values that we've learned at home into the practice of law, and every client that comes into our door will get the benefit of all four lawyers collaborating on their case.
I'm Mary Riviere, and when you come through our doors at Waits and Downer, you're part of our family.
As promised, our guest tonight, Coach Tim Rebowe. Coach, how you doing?
Man, good. Thanks for having me. I feel like making it on this show, maybe I've arrived. Some of the guests you've had on here, quite a lineup.
Well, you come in the studio, they put a little makeup on, you're looking sharp.
Yeah, thank you. Can you do something to darken the hair up a little bit?
I don't know, you're looking pretty distinguished nowadays. So let me ask you, you know, I've been knowing you for a long time, and I always see people where they end up. It's not where they started. Where you start sometimes, you look at somebody and you go, boy, they sure made a name for themselves. And sometimes they had a hard road, sometimes they didn't. But it's interesting to find out where they all started. When did it all start for you? What's the earliest years that you can remember?
Well, if you start thinking back to when growing up, and sports has always been a part of my life, and then it would have to be in the 70s, and coming to Nicholls and coming to the football games with my dad, right, and watching my brother Rusty play. You know, I was in junior high. He was making a name for himself here at Nicholls, and I can remember for 4 years coming here on Saturdays, and I think that kind of started the whole Tim Rebowe in Thibodaux Nicholls thing.
Right. You know, and I remember your brother, Rusty Rebowe, household name in this area. When you thought of Nicholls, you can't think of Nicholls without thinking of Rusty Rebowe, and without thinking, for that matter, went to the Saints, did a few things, just a great athlete, but he wasn't supposed to be that great. He wasn't that big. He must have had a lot of heart. Did you get a lot of that from him watching him?
Well, I know this, you know, now being in the business, he didn't have the measurables, you know, the things that they look for. And we joke about it today that, you know, if he had to go to these combines and these camps, you know, he might not get looked at. But you can't put a measurement on that, on how a guy loves to play the game. And he still holds the tackle record at Nicholls that I think will never be broken. It's just amazing some of the things that he did. And he talked about his years and how it shaped him to what he is today. So he had a pretty good career. Now he's coming back. I'm glad to have him back involved, and he's probably my #1 fan.
There you go. When you were starting to get acclimated at Nicholls and you got the head coaching job, how much pressure, if any, was there knowing that my brother sort of blazed the trail over here? Now I'm the head coach. Did you put any pressure on yourself?
I don't think you put the pressure from that standpoint. You know, me coming back here as the head coach, I knew a lot about the place. You know, being after coming here, then being an assistant here and coaching in the state my whole career, I kind of knew some of the things that was happening in Thibodaux. I felt like the program had been down. I think we kind of looked at it as, you know, the big thing is there's only one way to go is to go up. So I knew if we did some of the things we believed in, that we can have some success.
I remember you being on the bus. I think it was with Coach Barbier was the coach. And y'all had some success in those years. How does success breed success, because not all Nichols coaches had success. You were part of a successful program. That probably sat in the back of your head quite a bit, didn't it?
Well, I think part of the success is you have to go through some failures. And when you look at when we first came here as a staff, they thought they had a pretty good team coming back in. Coach Rhodes had just left the program, and Darren had taken it over. I was coming from a successful program at Destrehan High School. He was coming from Hornville High School. And we thought we could do some good things here. And boy, lo and behold, that first year we go 0-11. Right. And so the next year we have a big turnaround. We go 8-3 and go to the playoffs. And it was at that time it was one of the biggest turnarounds in the history of college football. So I think anywhere you go, Martin, you take the things that you learn, and you take some of the good things from people, and you also some of the bad things that you know you don't want to do as a coach, and you got to blend that all together.
But just like a coach, you remember that 0-11 season, and I forgot about it. Because I remember 8-3 when they went to the playoff game in the frigid cold, and I forgot all about the 0-11. A coach never forgets that, does he?
No, you never forget. That's what I'm saying. That's where you learn probably a lot of your successes is from those times and failures. We go the next year. We start recruiting a few more of our players. We get a transfer here, there, and there, and it can change the whole makeup of your team.
Where'd you get your work ethic? I know we were talking before the show, and your dad was from the river region, worked in the plants and that type of thing. Did that help sort of shape who you were? Where'd you get your toughness from?
I think growing up in my family and my older brothers and my sisters and the way they worked, and then watching my dad a little bit. But then also when I got into high school, I think athletics taught me a lot of that. And I had a couple good coaches who taught me how to be disciplined and how to work. And when I go back to think about my high school coach, who I ended up going to work for, who's still a mentor to me today, is Chipper Simon. And he was so successful as a coach. I took over for him. I'll never forget this day. He says, "Hey, I'm moving up. I want you to be the head coach at Destrehan." I was like, "Coach, I'm not ready." And he says, "Well, if you wait till you're ready, you'll never be." And, but he taught me about how to be disciplined, how to be organized, and that all the little things were important that mattered. And then you go along the way, and you can go start naming some other coaches things. But just watching people in my family, I know my brother-in-law Bubby, how hard he worked, and some of the things that he taught me along the way too.
Isn't it funny how you sort of watch your coaches, and especially the ones that are very successful, and you sort of mimic them a little bit, and you change it up a little bit to become yourself, but you always take little parts of what they taught you and you plug it in. Do you find yourself doing that?
I think constantly. We always talk about that. You got to take some of the good and take some of the bad, but you have to put your own twist on it. And we talk about that, and I tell the young coaches, not that I'm so old and unwise, but I tell the young coaches all the time, you have to be yourself. You have to coach to your personality. I think as a head coach, the same thing. I've learned a lot from some people in the right way to do things. I learned from Ricky Bussell. I learned from Bobby Kiesler, who was my head coach in Monroe. Mark Hudspeth taught me so much thing about motivation when I was there in Lafayette with the Cajuns. So you take so many things and you learn, but you still have to be you, and you have to put your own twist on it.
You know, growing up around, and I remember you telling me that your mom had passed away early. Did that give you some sort of, I guess, independence early, that maybe you had to grow up a little faster and get a little tougher, faster, and sort of make your own name for yourself?
I think so. It taught you how to survive a little bit. Now, I was 9 years old at the time, so I mean, I wasn't totally on my own surviving, but I had a lot of good people. The Webbers, who I grew up with, who is my family today. I mean, so many good people. They're my brothers and sisters, and my mom, Miss Deanna. So those things, they taught me along the way. They shaped me along the way. But I also try to tell young people today that no matter what the situation is, you got to make the best of it. And everybody's situation is different, but we can all move and learn from it.
The Tim Rebowe that I know has a great sense of humor. You're not always serious. Now, when you're in a football game, you're pretty serious. And I know that when we're around you on the sidelines or close by, You don't get by. You let you coach. And most smart people will let the coach during the game. But the other side of you got a good sense of humor. When did you develop that? And when did you realize, hey, I'm a fun kind of guy. I like to have a little fun too.
I don't know. Don't ask some of the assistants right now as we're getting ready to go to camp if I'm a fun type of guy. But
right.
no, again, I think it's just being who you are. I learned that in the recruiting over the years. You know that you have to go out, and I always found myself as a people person, I would think. So I like to enjoy other things. I think there is more than just football. There's other parts that we can do. We can enjoy stuff outside. And I want my coaches to do that. I want my young coaches to do that and go enjoy their family and get away from the football side of it when we can. But we do like to have a good time.
Right. You know, there's a point in time when you decide to be a coach. You don't just become a coach. You had to have played a few sports. I don't know anybody really coaching that's never picked up a baseball or a football or something of that nature. Growing up, what was your favorite sport?
I was a baseball player, actually. I mean, I loved football, but I played baseball. And those were the two sports I played in high school. I dabbled and played a little baseball in college for a year. So people say, well, how did you end up in football? You know, because when I was the head baseball coach and an assistant football coach, and then just turned towards football a little bit later on. So. But I knew when I was going to college, and I went back to my high school and started working. They didn't have the CECP at the time, but I used to go and scout for my high school. And I knew at the time that I wanted to be a coach, and that's the direction that I went. I don't know what I'd be doing today. I know a lot of people say that. What would you do if you wasn't a coach? I have no idea. I mean, I've been doing it for 30-something years, my whole life.
But it's funny you mentioned that, because I remember when we played in high school, our baseball coaches were scouting for the football coaches. You did what you had to do.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't 50 coaches around where you could sort of give everybody a role. Everybody had to do everything, didn't they?
Yeah, and then once you get into that, like I knew what I wanted to do. I'd come home on Fridays from college. I'd go back to my high school. I knew I wanted to be around that. I want to be in that atmosphere. I want to be around those players, that camaraderie. There's nothing like it. And so that I took my turn in that direction.
You know, but when you think of coaching, I don't think it's just X's and O's. I look at the person and say, how do they get the most out of their player? You seem to be able to do that. Now, whether you learn that from someone or it's innately in you, where do you think you got that from? They play for you.
I think that's a big part of it. The motivation part is in today. I mean, kids have so many choices and so many schools they can go to, so many things. But I tell our coaches all the time, you have to get the players to play for you. I mean, that is a big part. Look, there's a million coaches out there that's great at X's and O's. There's other coaches that's good at recruiting. There's other coaches. So we have to put together a good staff of guys who can blend it and do it all together. So there's not just one thing. Look, the X's and O's are a big part of it. A little bit of athletic talent has a lot to do with it also. But it's the total. The coach today has to be so much more than just an X's and O's guys, because there's so many things you deal with and you have to deal with on a daily basis.
When did yours came later? I think you just alluded to it. You know, when I talk to Coach Orgeron or anybody, at a certain age, they know this is what I want to be. Some people at 11 years old know, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an attorney, or some women know, I want to be a nurse. Around what age was it that you said, I'm coaching?
I think it was probably in my teenage years. I knew I wanted to be involved in athletics. I knew I wanted to do that. I knew I wanted to be around young people. And then and I say young people, I want to make a difference in some people's lives and develop them. But I think somewhere around the 12, 13, 14-year-old, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in it.
Growing up and watching sports, who was that coach that you saw, maybe on TV, maybe local, wherever that you were going? I want to be like that person.
I don't know if there was just one person. I mean, I'll tell you this today, if you fast forward, I'm a big sports fan. So I'll watch sports. It doesn't matter what it is, baseball, basketball, football, track and field, it doesn't matter. I watch it all. And then I try to learn from a bunch of them. But I think it was a couple of the guys that maybe shaped you a little bit earlier. Not nobody famous, maybe on TV, a couple of my high school coaches that I knew I can maybe want to be like.
When you were playing ball, and in my age group too, coaches could get away with anything. They'd tell you how they felt. They were tough. They were rough. They were fair, but it was just a different time. It's a different time today. So you've had to morph a little bit. How hard was it to morph into what you do now? Do you still get tough at practice?
I think you have to. But I also think what has changed is over the years, and I'm a parent, but I think the parenting has changed over the years. And you can remember growing up with your dad, if you got in trouble or you did something at school or in sports, you got it from the coach there, but you also got it from when you got home. And it was tough at home.
I was pretty much paying the coach at school not to tell dad.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that has changed over the years. And you have to be tough. You have to have the discipline. But you hit the nail on the head. You're going to treat them fair. We're not going to treat every player the same. I think that's big. But you're going to treat everybody in a fair manner. Sometimes people don't see that you're treating their son different, but you're really not. But you have to have some toughness and have some discipline if you're going to have some success.
And isn't that the key to coaching, is that Jack from Destrehan is not going to be the same as John from maybe Plaquemine. They might have been brought up in a different household. They might have been brought up with a different means of finances, but psychologically, you got to figure out what makes that player go. You may have to get on this player a little bit more. You may have to soft talk this player, and then you got to disguise that amongst the whole team, don't you?
Yeah, I think we talk all the time. We have to know what button to press. I mean, there's no cookie cutter. You can't put every player into that same mold. The old saying, we say, hey, you got to know which players you're gonna kick in the butt and which players you got to pat on the butt. Okay, and you just got to work with it. But I think when you get close to your players and you get close to your team, whether you're an assistant coach, whether you're the equipment manager, you get to know those personalities and you know which ones. Look, I can know right now which player I can go out and really get on and yell at, which I know we do a little yelling at times out on the field. And then which ones you got to treat a little bit different.
And then you also know which ones are going to yell at themselves.
Right.
And that they're beating themselves up for making a mistake, and that just sort of roll, don't you?
Yeah, and we talk about that. Some of the good players, they'll coach themselves. I get asked that question a lot, Martin, about, hey, who's some of the best players that you coached, and I think it's unfair. I think you look at a guy's resume. Oh, he coached so and so. Oh, he coached this guy. The good ones really coach themselves.
Right.
That's not the ones that you have to do. You got to get those other ones to try to get something out of themselves that might not happen.
In other words, you try to get those players to really coach some of the other team.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Exactly.
Coach them up a little bit. When you first took the field as the head coach, you'd been around, you'd been an assistant coach, you had a lot of success. But when you get called to be the head coach, all the focus becomes on you. How nervous were you before that first game?
Man, I tell you, that feeling, like you didn't know, do you have everything done? Did you take care of everything? You just try to go through it in your mind over and over again. But I also say this, if you surround yourself with some good people, and you kind of let them do some of the things, you can't do it all. I try to do that sometimes and say, but you have to delegate and let them do it. I just want to make sure, you talk about that, I'll back up a little bit, like our first practice in that spring. And we got the first snap off, and we caught it, and we handed it off, and I was excited. Hey, we had 11 guys on the field. We got the snap off. I said, hey, we got a chance. We got a chance. And then, those first couple games that first year was tough because we had lost some of those games along the way. But it's been a fun ride so far.
I sort of say this half teasing, but got to go play Georgia. Then when I was looking at your schedule, and I see Georgia, then I see A&M, and I'm going, who is making this schedule? But then you go to Georgia, and you damn near beat them, and you go to A&M, and y'all had the lead going into the fourth, and I'm sitting there going, whoa, this is unbelievable. What was going on the sideline with the team at that point? You could almost see it in them going like, we belong here.
I think any athlete wants to be able to compete, and they all want to think that they can compete at the highest level. And so sometimes you go and you hear people say, well, you know, he has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to show that he could play in the SEC. Or we didn't approach it that way, not at all. I thought we had a chance because we had some guys up front in the trenches that can. And so after those first couple series, our guys start believing, hey, you know, we belong here. We can play here. We can compete here. But, you know, we got to be careful because I always talk about those past performances.
Right.
There's not going to be any future indications of how we're going to do it going into this year.
Yeah.
You know, you have that early. People
Because your conference is tough.
Every week in and week out, and we're getting better. I think one of the toughest FCS conferences in the country. So you better be ready. You can't just look at who we go play Kansas and go play Tulane this year, because then you go week 3, you go to McNeese and you got Sam Houston, and it's just every week.
Your first 4 games. Wow.
Yeah. And three of them on the road. 3 out of the first 4 on the road is just the way. Look, we know we play an 11-game schedule. We have 9 conference games. Yeah. So you're going to play 2 non-conference games every year.
Right.
Probably a few of the big boys, as they say.
Right.
Some call them some of the money games, and everybody has to do it. So we can choose those. What you can't choose is those other 9 ones in the order that you're going to play them. It just so happens this cycle we're playing probably 2 of the toughest teams over the last 20 years in the conference, in McNeese and Sam Houston. You look at what they've done. So we've got to go and compete against those guys. That's really what we got to do. And last year, when you look at it, we opened up the year with McNeese and we beat them. I think it kind of set the tone for us for the season. And then we went and stunk it up against Sam Houston. So I think our guys know what we got to do. At some point, if you want to be the best, and you hear him say, you got to beat the best.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to have to do this year.
But you got a little maturity now. You know, the Coach Rebowe system is intact. You got a quarterback in his 3rd year now, so he's not a rookie. And so those letdowns that you get as a coach, you go play A&M, then you come back and they believe in themselves, then you beat McNeese, then you have a letdown. That's where the little maturity comes in now, where they know they've been there before, so you can't have the letdown. That helps to have a little maturity on the team.
Yeah, look, I think when you have a quarterback returning with the experience that he has, you have the surrounding cast. He's surrounded by a bunch of good players. When you start returning 8 and 9 guys on offense, 8 and 9 guys on defense, guys who have been in a lot of battles, there is a maturity factor. Those guys know, and I got to be careful, and we have to be careful as a coach. You got to give this team a little bit of leeway, because they've earned some things, but you still got to get them ready and prepare them. And then they're going to have some leadership. They're going to have to do some things on their own.
At the same time, the coach from McNeese and other schools are looking at Nichols going, we got to get ready for this team. So they're up in their ante on the field, because now they know y'all are very formidable at this point.
Yeah, you're not sneaking up on anybody anymore, and it's a good feeling. You know, we talk about often the Nichols logo now when you go into schools to recruit, or you go out in the community, or you see things on TV. It's a little more well respected than it was a couple years ago. So, and it's the same thing in the football, in those locker rooms. Those guys know when they come to Thibodaux to play us, we want to make that the toughest place to play. We want to get that fans behind us. We did that last year. You know, one of our goals is to go undefeated at home. And we talk about that, is if you go undefeated at home, you can be 5-0. You can have 5 wins right there. And when I talked to the team, I said, listen, we're not bringing in the Pittsburgh Steelers to John L. Guidry Stadium to play us. So anybody we bring into the stadium, we should and could beat them. So if we have that approach and that mindset, and I think we'll be okay.
Coaches can be very superstitious. Do you have any regiment that you do that you will not? I remember Coach Albert when he was winning all these softball games, won 112 at Vanderbilt, wore the same shirt, same coaching shorts, and I would ask his wife, what if there's back-to-back games? She goes, I run home, wash it, and I put it back in. You have any superstition?
I don't think nothing that crazy. I think going back my old baseball day, baseball players and coaches have a lot of superstitions as far as what stirrup they put on first back in the day and do those. I don't think so. I think we got a little routine. I always think about sometimes, though, there's some football guys up there who might be looking down on you a little bit. No, just probably game day routine, getting a good run in, getting a good work in. Me and Coach Ryback, he'd go for a run, whether we, on the road or where we are, to get us going right there. But nothing too crazy out of the ordinary.
I always say you judge a coach by not the win, but the loss. After you win a big game, if you're playing a Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, feeling pretty good. You're pumped, you're motivated. But if you get that loss on a Thursday, and you got to regroup and redirect your team, that's what makes the coach, doesn't it?
I think so. I think you have to have that even keel, and we talked about that. You cannot get too high with the wins, and you cannot get too low with the losses. And I remember this, and I think coming off the team that we inherited that was 0-12, and then we came in that next year, and we had lost the first couple games. And the guys were down, and they were just, their heads dropping. I said, hey, that's not how we're going to be. We're not going to act any different if we come in here after a loss than we came here after a win. Now, I don't want you dancing around and jumping around and being happy we lost, but I think that's important. You got to try to stay even. Look, this business, you talk to coaches today, and they saying the highs are not nearly as high after you win, and the lows are far too low after you lose. I think the teams that can maintain that even keel along those lines and keep those guys playing them one game at a time are the ones that are going to, in the long haul, have the success.
Because everybody's got a pretty good team.
Everybody's got talent.
Yeah, everybody's got talent. So realistically, unless you're really lucky, you're not going to win them all. You try to, but you're not going to win them all. So you're right. Just keeping everybody realistic would be the key, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and our players know that. I don't try to take any opponent and put them so high on the pedestal, that we can't beat them. Or I don't take any opponent and say, hey, this team we should beat. We don't approach it that way.
So you don't use the fear factor as much as you use believe in yourself.
Well, I think it's all about us, and I think the message to the team always, especially going into this fall camp, is we have to take care of us. And if we take care of us, then what happens across the field, it really doesn't matter. We got to put ourselves. Now, I do know this. There's going to be things that come up that we're not prepared for. Some good, which will be opportunities for us. There'll be some things that pop up that's bad. Okay, maybe a little adversity that we're not prepared for. But how we respond to that is going to be the whole key, whether we're going to have success, not what the other team does.
I always wanted to ask this to Coach. I don't think I ever did. You're sitting on the sideline. One of your key players gets injured, but you got to keep coaching. But what's in the mind when you're seeing that happening, but you know that the cavalry's got to still keep going?
I think as the head coach of this program, and really of anybody, is they look to you. And during those times when something's going to happen, they're going to look to see how you react. Now, sometimes on the sideline, I get a little emotional on some things, but I have to maintain that same thing to not show them that we're going to break. And the old philosophy, coaches, hey, next man up. So if a guy goes down, we got to tell that next guy he had better be prepared and be ready to go and step up, because we look at it as that's an opportunity for somebody else. As much as you feel for the young man who might be injured, who might be out, but it's an opportunity for somebody else.
Sometimes that next man up becomes a pretty good player.
We had that last year. We went through a a whole slew of running backs who kept going down, and the next guy would step up, and the next guy, you know, we were down to our 4th or 5th running back, and guys were doing pretty good. So that's the mentality. But you coach that, Martin, all the time. That's what you're preaching about in every meeting, and every rep is important, and everybody's important, and everybody has a role. And then when your time comes and you have that opportunity, you need to be prepared.
I think one of the things I love the most about you is you come across very humble. And you are a humble. You're not a seeking the limelight kind of guy. You didn't call us to do this show. We called you. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I guess my upbringing, the people I was raised with, they said it's not about me. It's about the people, and that's one of the things that I mentioned to earlier. It's about the people around you. And I guess I kind of do the same thing with the team and tell them that is, if we're having success, there's enough accolades to go around for everybody. And I kind of think it's the same thing here. I know I get to come do the interview. I get to be on TV and do those things, and but it's not about me. It's about all those guys in the room, and I try to spread that wealth.
As you look at your career, and you now got the head job, and to be honest, nothing against Nick, you could be a head coach in a lot of places, but you got a head coaching job. A lot of people don't get a head coaching job. Did you ever think your career was going to go that direction?
No.
Did you hope?
Always you hope. But listen, I tell, when I bring in recruits and I go speak to places, I tell people where I started off coaching. I was a head coach at a junior high school, a middle school, Harry Hurst Middle School. I was the head football coach, and I was the baseball coach at Destrain High School. Right. And then I worked my way, being an assistant, and doing all those things, and then slowly working, and then got into college and did. So I said, you can start anywhere. I mean, you want to think, hey, oh, this guy, look where he is. He's the head coach right here. Did not think it. You always just try to, every move, you know, coaches move a lot. Yeah. And every move you make, you're thinking, hey, maybe it's a move to that's going to better. It's for you and your family, but you never know. Look, I tried to get this job a couple times before and didn't get it. Yeah. And I said, hey, man, it happened for a reason. Right. Maybe I wasn't ready. Then finally got it, and we're having a little success, and so here we are. Yeah.
But I see when people become head coaches, see it in you, Coach O at LSU. All of a sudden they get more cousins, they get more friends, they get more entourage, and you can't not accept it because it's flattering and it's part of what it is to be a head coach, but you have to manage it. How do you manage all that?
Oh, well, staying true to who you are. Don't get the big head. Don't think that it's all about you, because it's not. But it is nice that you walk in places now and you go eat, and people, hey, coach, they know what you do, and having a little success. But that's the great thing about this business, you know. And then also I talk about this community. I mean, we've spoken before about it. What a great community this the whole Bayou region is. It's a unique. It's a great culture. It's about family, and I think everybody just wants to be part of that family.
Yeah. How much do you beat yourself up after? Are you one of those coaches that goes home and goes, if I would have just done this, or do you go, it happened?
No, beat myself up constantly. After practice, if something happens that I could have done something different to change the situation. Not so much calling a play, you know. I mean that's not. It's something that maybe I didn't prepare them right, maybe I didn't say something right, maybe I didn't do something right. That's the nature of the beast, though. Yeah. I'm not putting the blame on anybody else. It all starts right here.
How rewarding is it that when you're coaching a team and you got a guy, we see it all the time. You got a guy that's great in practice, then the lights go on, they become an average player. Then you have the other guy that's average at practice, but when the lights go on, he's a different animal. I'm sure you see that a lot, don't you?
I wouldn't say a lot. I really, I mean, I think there's some rare cases you hear people say, well, Coach, I'm a gamer, you know, and do that. I don't think so, because
you want them to practice.
Well, you
too,
got to be able to do it in practice.
Yeah.
And I go back, when I think about that, I think about recruiting, and I tell our coaches this all the time. You know, and Coach O talks about it. Recruiting is the lifeblood of, you know, of your program, right? Our coaches have done a great job of recruiting, and I know a lot has been said about how we recruit locally, yes, and recruiting in this state. Yeah. But I think our guys are great evaluators, and we stay true to what we believe. And we always say, if we see a guy that can do something on Friday night in a game, then he can do it on Saturday for us. And we've held true to that. We've got many guys that are just good football players. Might be a little slower, might be a little bit shorter, right? Might be, but he's just a good football player, and we're winning with those guys. So,
and he loves to play, and he's got a good character.
Look, we do the homework, right, across the board. You find out everything you can about him, and I think that's one of the biggest things. Today, not just at Nichols, not just in college. I mean, kids today have so many things to do. Right. I mean, they have so many things pulling them in all directions. Yeah. They got to love the game. College football now, it's a business. And I've had kids tell me, hey, Coach, it's not as fun as it was in high school. It's not high school. It's not. It's becoming a business. Right. It's a year-round. You got to work. So my point is, you better love the game, and we got to find those guys.
You know, back in your day, y'all didn't bring cell phones to the locker room, or you wasn't calling your girlfriend before you got on the practice field. And I sort of chuckle now because I see it outside of HTV. I look out the window sometimes, all the kids are looking in their phones playing Pokemon, and they're not even looking at the car coming down the street. It's a different world. So, do you flex a little bit?
I think you have to. Yeah. And I go back to a couple years ago. Look, I always talk about it, and when I go speak and I pull out the cell phone, and I say, hey, this is perhaps the greatest invention ever, but it's going to be the death of all of us. Right. You know, you got to give them some freedom. We used to take their phone up on Friday nights when we go to the hotel. Yeah. You go check curfew, and you grab their cell phone from them for the night. The next morning, at 7 o'clock the next morning when you have breakfast, you're giving it right back to them. Right. But it was something for them to turn off, right? And not even, just to get away from it. You don't want them up all night on the phones. Right. Well, kids get smart. They turn it in another phone that's broken, or they find another ways to do it. We just tell our guys to be smart, you know, with that. I joke with our players, like we'll go to a meal, and they know in our meetings or in the meal the phones are off, but look, they listen in, they doing things with it, and so they're at a table, and I'm saying, hey, why don't y'all talk to each other, right? Instead of just texting it. That's right. But we all living in a different world, and social media now, we have to monitor that very, very closely, and we do.
Aside from coaching, when you just want to get away, how does Tim Rebowe get away? Fishing, jogging, what do you do?
I'm not a big fisherman, even though I go, how can you not be in this area, right? And people invite us all the time. I like to exercise, and go and get a good run, and go and do that. It kind of just clears the head and clears the mind. And boy, completely on the other side of that, I love to eat. So to maybe cook or go out to dinner or go places, me and Kim love to go do that.
You know, I always thought, never knew, I thought Rebowe was like a Lebanese name. It's Italian.
It is Italian. My grandparents came over from on the boat back in the day, settled in St. Charles Parish. We grew up in Norco, Louisiana, on the river. And my brother Todd, he knows the background. He knows the ancestry of how we changed the name of it, and because it was too hard to spell or something. But Rebowe and my mother was French, so I got the combination of French and Italian.
How much do you rely on old coaches or good friends and get on the phone sometimes and go, man, I'm sort of stuck. I'm game planning here, and I'm stuck. Help. Do coaches do that a lot?
We do that a bunch. the thing is, you have one or two close ones that you call that you can tell everything to. The funny part is, and today, becoming the head coach, all my friends but they all head coaches of the other schools and who we play in, so it's hard to, you don't want to bounce nothing off of each other there.
Right.
Off season we do. We'll tell each other everything, what we do. We constantly, I'll go to the Southland meetings and ask these guys, hey, what are you doing in fall camp? How do you practice schedule? What are you doing with this?
Right.
So we do that constantly because look, nothing is ours. Nothing is original and nothing is ours. Coaches joke about that they've stolen everything they got. You know what I mean? They borrowed everything because that's what this business is, and there's a lot of good coaches who will share everything with them.
The enemy's on Thursday or Saturday night, but your friends.
Me and Jay Thomas used to talk about that all the time. Jay used to be the coach here. We coached together. Yeah. And look, you just want to beat him in that one night, you know, and in that week you won't talk to him. Other than that, I mean, you can go do something, and people say, how can you do that? You've got to be able to separate the two. You've got to be able.
But I can see that in you. There's some coaches, they just angry. They want to beat everybody all the time and just, put the face in the mud and press it down. You able to keep a pretty good demeanor about yourself, and I've asked you early in the show, but just to press a little more, is that something you have to work on, or is it just something that you're born with?
I almost think it's something that's in you all along the way. I mean, I don't go home and say I need to be nice to this guy, or I need to, because let me tell you, I get as competitive as anybody, and I get as frustrated as anybody in doing those things, and I want to beat you, just as bad. But I think at the end of the day, you have to separate that, and almost, and I don't want to say it's just a game, but there are other things that's, to some people, more important. That they're going through more important things. We talked about that, illness and death, and people going through that. So if you can separate that a little bit, I think that helps you.
When you first started, I watched you public speak. You're a good public speaker. But now you're becoming dynamic.
Wait, I don't know
You're
about
getting
that.
used to that, aren't you?
No, not really, because, again, being the worst critic, and I ask people all the time, like, I get so nervous when I have to prepare things because I want to be on. I mean, I need to make sure if I'm going to speak to a group at the hospital, or if I'm going to speak to the Kiwanis Club, it doesn't matter. If it's 5 people in the audience or 500 people, I want to be on. I feel that same way about the team,
right?
And I worry about that every message I'm getting it clearly across to the players. So I don't know. You say dynamic. I don't see it.
Well, but I think what people see, and to be quite honest with you, is they see Tim Rebowe. You don't change. You're not a chameleon. You don't change when you get up there to speak. You come from the heart. Right. I think they see that.
Well, I think by nature, I'm an optimistic person, a positive person, and I try to do that. Now, there's some times when people say, well, what's wrong? There's a lot going on in the mind, and you can do that. But no, I work at it. I do. I try to, but I just try to be me.
What's that song that you get in your truck or whatever, and you put on either a song or a CD that just brings you back in time, and it all goes away?
I love music.
Okay.
I love live music. In fact, this past weekend, went to a concert, took my family to a concert. I don't think there's one genre. I listen to it all.
Who played at the concert?
I went to see OAR in Austin, Texas, last weekend off. And this summer, I went to see the Eagles.
I was going to ask you about the Eagles.
I went to see the Eagles.
But I tell you, you look like an Eagles guy.
I listened to Frankie Beverly and Mays. I mean, I listened to all kinds of music across the board. So anything, my stations have a variety. My playlist has a variety.
So you're diverse.
I like to think so.
Okay. Yep. Flexible. Flexible. There you go. Any movie that sticks out?
No. You know what? This is going to be kind of sad. Over the last couple of years, I've kind of gotten away from movies. I'm a sports movie guy, though. I can really get into. Watch this Summer Brian song, and I know that's dating me, right? Going way back. But what a great football, heartfelt movie. I really get into those too.
Yeah. As you look forward, do you set a lot of goals for yourself? Do you say, in 10 years, here's where I want to be? Because goals to me sometimes can disappoint a person. Or do you just let fate take you where it wants to take you?
I'm not a huge goal giving you a timetable. You know, saying I want to be at age 45, I want to be here. You know, at 50, I wanted to do this. Things happen for a reason, and sometimes they're out of your control. So we just kind of go. I know I get asked a lot about, hey, where are you going to? I'm enjoying where I am now, and that's what I want to do. And if you take care of your business and do what you're supposed to do where you are, and I tell our players that all the time, then the doors are going to open for you wherever they may be.
I've heard the phrase, coaches' wives, so many times in my career interviewing people. They really are coaches' wives. They sacrifice a lot, don't they?
Yeah.
And I know you give credit a lot.
I do. I have a special one who's been through, I think she knew, though we talk about this all the time. She knew what we were getting into, you know, being coach, and knew, and that's what I want to do. When we had our second child, she decided not to go to work, you know, didn't want to go to work. Not my choice. She wanted to raise the family.
Right.
And her being home allowed me to do what I could. I was not there getting them off the bus. Right. I was not there at night with them because we were always coaching and meeting and doing things. Summers, you know, you don't have those summers. So she's been fantastic and loves doing it. Now it's funny to see Kim. She is the elder statesman of the wives. You know what I mean? She is the. So for her to take some of the young wives in and give them some advice and some of the things that we've done, she's done a great job with that.
Yeah. Does she feel the pain after a loss, or is she able to say, Tim, wake up, it's only a game, they got one next week? How does she keep you level?
Well, first of all, I like to think that I don't bring it home all the time.
All right.
You know, I try to, it's hard, you know that. But no, she's on that even keel thing. She don't say bring it back, or, you know, she just stays right there. Look, she knows when I want to talk, when we can talk about it, or just to kind of let it go.
She sounds pretty smart to me.
Yeah, she's done a great job.
Yeah. So as you're starting to gear up and get ready, right around the corner, I know Nichols, if you look historically over the years, has had his challenges bringing people to the game, getting people to come. Y'all have lit the fuse again, but you're doing different things to light it. Y'all got a big event coming up, don't you?
Yeah. Again, I hit it earlier about the great community and the people, and I think having a little success, everybody's coming back. The tailgating has been fantastic. It's now an event people are talking about, you know, coming to one of the Nichols games, that they love it. But I tell the players that all the time, Martin, if you have a little success on the field, if you put a product on the field, they will come to see you. And we work hard about putting our brand out there, about who we want to be. And our players, you know, have kind of embraced that and done it. But always trying to tweak things and do things. We got an event coming up on August the 18th, our Huddle Up Club, which is anybody can become a member of it. It's a big membership drive for us. And on August the 18th, we're having the ultimate fan experience. And it'll be at Guidry Stadium. We're having a cook-off. So you can come tailgate and show your favorite things that you cook, whether it's in a pot, or you're going to fry it, or you're grilling. There's 3 categories. So we have a cook-off. We're going to have a 5K race at 5 o'clock that afternoon. And it's going to be finished on the 50. So guys will be able to finish their race and have an event. And at 6:30, we're going to have our final scrimmage of the year. So we combining it all. It's going to be a great experience. Also, our teams, our other teams will be out there. Our cross-country team will be out there. Our volleyball team and our soccer team. It'll be like fan day. So we're trying to just want people to come out and enjoy and having a good atmosphere.
When Rusty was at your game last year, and I never met Rusty. I think Lester Beamer introduced me to Rusty, and I'm talking to Rusty. And he's going to be a good one-on-one candidate too, Rusty. But I'm watching Rusty watch you. And I'm sitting there go, here's the, in the statistics of Nichols, here's a guy that leads a lot of categories. He's watching his younger brother coach the team. Did Rusty ever say anything to you? Any advice?
Oh, I think we talk constantly,
Okay.
you know, and I joke all the time. I said, Russ, you need to come coach on the staff. You know, he said he's not going to do that. But I bounce things off him too. He's very knowledgeable, knows the game, been around, not just Nichols. I mean, so I throw things at him. We talk about what I would have done, what we should have done, or we agree, or this. You know, I think it's natural, but we have that relationship and we have that conversation. But I do know that he's on that sideline and he is the biggest fan. And look, as much as he loves Nichols and seeing them success, you know, he sees little brother having some success too.
And that's what I'm alluding to. More than that, he's not watching to see what you're doing wrong. He's proud. You can tell. That's got to make you proud.
Well, yeah, because, you know, growing up my whole life looking up to him and the things that he's done, just what he's done as a family man. I mean, I look up to him still, how he's a father and what he does. And so, and we're a close group, you know, with his kids. So constantly looking up to him, so it kind of makes you feel good.
Final question, and I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. Forgot your wife, brought her right here, but you can't talk to her. She can only talk to me. And I got Rusty, and I got all your old coaches that brought you up. And I got coaches, you know, Coach O, Coach Ensming, and bring them all in. And then a few of your key players. Chase 4K. And I said, give me one word that would describe coach, husband, player, Tim Rebowe. What's the one word you would hope that they would use to describe you?
He cares.
Okay. Caring.
Yep.
All right.
That he cares. Because at the end of the day, this football stuff's going to be gone. You want somebody to say, you know what, he was a good person. That he did things and he cared about other people.
That's a word that means a lot of responsibility that goes with the word caring, doesn't it?
Yeah. And look, it just come into office one day and how many different people come through in different angles and that you have to go through. Constantly, so many of the players right now are going through so many things, and some of them don't have a father figure. Somebody doesn't have somebody in their lives that could be there. I always want that door to be open for them, and long after I'm gone, I want them to say that he was a good person.
Yes, that's my point. Coaching is not X's and O's. You got to have a psychology degree sometimes to go with it, but it seems to fit you well.
Yeah, and I'm in a great place. I'm at a great time in my life right now. A lot of success. I want to stay here. I'm getting up in age, Martin, you know that. I want to stay here for years to come.
Coach, thank you for joining us, and great job, and we look for great things from you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.